you can also see, there. Everything good? You guys can see that Youth Impact Orientation Part 2, Welcome to the Movement. All right, beautiful. So, like I just mentioned, you just did the HR orientation. That's really fun, but what's even more fun is the youth impact side. So what we're going to spend our time talking about today is this. The majority of our time will be around keeping kids safe. And then we're going to get into some of our priority outcomes and principles of youth development. And so our training is kind of flip-flopped. It used to be mega. The biggest piece was the priority outcomes and how to run high-quality program activities with kids. But now that with COVID and we're not actually doing as much high-quality program facilitation as we're used to in this new reality, we're going to talk mostly about kind of our behavior management piece, because that seems to be where folks really need support. And then we'll touch on those principles of youth development. Our clubs are starting to be at the place now where they are able to integrate programs throughout the day, our activities, but a bulk of the day is really supporting those kids with distance learning and managing behavior, and then sneaking in those activities around kids' Zoom schedules, which is really, it's a challenge, but also fun. Okay, so I know HR, Holly already emphasized for you that keeping kids safe is our #1 priority as an organization. But it's not just, and there's so many nuances to what it means to keep kids safe. So when we think about safety in our clubs, we think about kind of physical and also emotional safety. So I did not mention, but you have a youth impact orientation handbook in front of you. There are some spots that I normally would pause the training and have folks write directly into their workbooks. But since it's just a small group here today, just you two ladies, instead of doing that, we'll probably do more open-based discussion about it. I think it's just a little bit more interactive when we've got a small group. But for folks at home on the recording, you can pause and go ahead and jot your notes into your workbook, and then we can share those notes with your club lead when you get back to club. So for Molly and Maddie, when you hear physical and emotional safety, what comes up for you in terms of what's the difference between these two elements, do you think?
I think physical is the body and emotional is the spirit, heart, and mind.
I love how you said that, the spirit, heart, and mind. I have not had a new coordinator say it that way before. That's beautiful. You nailed it right on the head. I mean, for physical, we really are talking more about those physical kind of body pieces that can come into play. So when we're keeping kids physically safe, we're really, scanning our environment. Maybe we're going to the blacktop, so we're going to scan and make sure there's no dents in the road that kids can trip on, or ropes or spare equipment. You're going to actively supervise, so walking around making sure that you can see everyone, and if going to prevent any incidents from happening before they occur by scanning and supervising and kind of taking stock of the space. And we're going to follow everyday practices and procedures. So let's say you're on the playground. You might have rules with your club that, they can only climb up to this level of the play structure, or, they can't, this area right here is off limits, so there's only 2 at a time. And those are kind of procedures and practices that your club will have developed based on each specific space and what physical hazards there are there. And then emotional safety, yes, we're trying to make sure that everybody's heart is intact. When we think about emotional safety, we're engaging actively in community building activities. So we are intentionally creating opportunities for kids to come together as a community and bond the group, so to speak. We're actively addressing conflicts. So something that I notice with new team members is sometimes they don't want to rock the boat too much. So if they come into a space and a member maybe calls someone a name, they kind of sometimes will say, okay, that's enough, let's line up, and don't really address that the name was actually called. So we do actively address conflicts. What I mean is in that situation, for example, we might say, Julio, come on over here and let's have a little chat. So the kids can see it's actually happening. We're not going to call out Julio to the whole group. It's not about shaming Julio, but it is about, we saw that this happened. It violates a norm in our group, and we're going to talk about it and address it. So even if that's one-on-one with members, the group needs to know something is, something's happening to hold the line of what the expectations are for what it looks like to show up positively at our club. We also actively listen to our members. So that is hard to do when we have a group of 12 to 15 kids in a room with distance learning, to actively listen to every single member. But we do want to try to make as much time as we can for those independent kind of one-on-one conversations, those little individual check-ins with every child. And also if somebody has their feelings hurt or there is a behavior incident, really listening to the member in their own words, what happened, and hearing it from their point of view, whether they were maybe a perpetrator or just involved in some other way. And then lastly, to support emotional safety, we are also very consistent and fair. So across any games that we're playing, whether it's outside or inside, if we start a norm and this is the rule, then we're going to apply it consistently across the kids. So if we say we're not running in the hallway, then we're going to that's the rule we really want to make a thing in our club, then we're going to make sure that all of the members know what the expectation is, and then they're all being held accountable to following the rules. I said a lot of things quickly. You feel like, ladies, you feel like you understand the difference between emotional and physical safety?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hard to tell when we're virtual. Okay. So with the behavior management, I always tell new folks that no matter how awesome of a person you are that works with children, no matter how much training you have and how amazing the group of kids is that you're working with, you will never come to club and have a full day with no behavior incidents. And the reason that is true is not because we don't try to, for this high achievement at all times, but we understand that that's not the children's work is learning how to behave positively. So that is just the nature of the job. They do not have all the answers. It's up to us to kind of help provide for them different ways to meet behavior standards. And we're going to get into how we do that. But this is the work that they are doing. This is the job. We are providing behavior guidance. And again, like there's just never going to be a day you come in, even if somebody's absent, your number one offender, there's still going to be other things that happen. Okay. And that's just the nature of the work. But we do strive for prevention over intervention whenever possible. So when I say prevention over intervention, what do you think I might mean by that?
Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
it's kind of confusing to me, just a little bit, like not super, because prevention just, like stopping the incident, like don't let this bad thing happen. But when I'm thinking of like a smaller thing, like don't you like intervening, like does it mean for like me, like I don't want to intervene into a situation? Like,
yeah, great question. So when we're thinking about prevention, we are thinking about it in terms of accidents and incidents a little bit more. So we want to prevent any behavior problems from happening or any accidents or incidents. But it could be as simple as we're going to go outside and we're going to play pool noodle tag. Wow, try saying that 3 times fast. Pool noodle tag, but we are going to prevent any behavior incidents from happening, we're going to go through all the behavior expectations, how to play, demonstrate it, do a practice round, show kids how to tag with a pool noodle correctly, rather than just saying, okay, we're going to do freeze tag, and if you get hit with the pool noodle, you are frozen. Like we actually go through it with them so that they have a clear, transparent understanding of how to play and what's expected. Intervention, when we talk about intervention, we're thinking more about you see something about to happen or somebody's feelings are starting to get hurt, and that's where you kind of slide in and you intervene to redirect the behavior. Every once in a while, there is no matter how actively we're supervising and checking in with kids, and we do an example round and et cetera, there still might be a behavior incident that happens and somebody gets upset and, does shove someone, for example. And in that case, we do intervene and we have to go through our behavior management, calm down steps and, apply consequences as needed. So we want to prevent accidents, incidents, and those things from happening as much as possible, but we do need to intervene sometimes when we have to.
Okay.
Did I say a lot of
No, that made sense. You want
Okay.
so you don't have to intervene. That makes sense. I get it now.
Yeah. You almost want to prevent to the point where you don't have to intervene, but yet we do know that there will be situations where we have to intervene. That's just natural. Yeah. So going into that lens, knowing that you're going to walk into situations that are going to be challenging behaviorally, because that is the work. And we're going to try to set kids up to succeed as much as possible so that those do not happen. Let's look at how do we do that in our Boys and Girls Clubs. So each of these bullets, I think there's a slide for each one. So we're going to go through kind of our best practices for how to handle that group of 12 to 15 kids. We're going to set and revisit behavior expectations. We are going to use positive reinforcement. And then we're going to provide developmentally appropriate consequences for specific types of behaviors. So for this part, and then we'll have a chance to kind of practice a little bit, but when we talk about setting expectations, this is similar to what I just said about we're going to go play tag, this is how we play, but it's even as simple as I will use this example because it's my number one thing. If you get nothing else out of today, I really just strongly recommend you do this with your group on your first day of club, sitting down all the kids and saying, hey, my name's Maddie, my name's Molly. Let me tell you 3 things about me that I'm excited to bring to Boys and Girls Club. And then let's come up with some shared expectations as a group for how we want to show up in club together. And the typical kind of expectations that we set, we really want it to come from the kids. So if you could if you have a poster board or a whiteboard or whatever it is, asking the kids how do we want, if we have to be here together in the club, how do we want to show up? What do we want to get out of this? Maybe have them brainstorm, no, usually the kids go straight to the no. They phrase it kind of negative, no name calling, no kicking, no, they'll have a 6th grader say no biting. I'm like, you guys really biting? But they come up with those kinds of things. And then as a group, I would come up with a way to summarize that so that you have your shared expectations. And usually when we summarize it, it ends up being something like be safe, be respectful, be responsible. We try to phrase it kind of positively with the clear expectation. So be safe, be respectful, be responsible, and then have the kids all sign it or, put their hand in ink and put their fingerprint up if you've got younger kids that are still learning how to write. But we do want to come up with some shared agreements and expectation because then they're more bought in. They feel like this is part of my community. I agree to this expectation, and now it's very clear for me what's expected. It's not me trying to understand what Molly's thinking about. It's really, it says that. And then you want to revisit those expectations. So often, Wednesdays, there's many clubs. I'm trying to remember if Windsor and Healdsburg has this, but there is usually on Wednesdays at many of our districts that we were working with, they have a minimum day Wednesday. And when that happens, it's awesome because we get out of distance learning early and we have a little bit more time before club closes. So that's an awesome time for you to sit and make these shared expectations with the group, but also to revisit them weekly. So you don't have to spend your whole extra time just talking about expectations, but hey, so let's remember it's Wednesday. What were our shared expectations? How are those going? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to, maybe want to make sure that we really got to have a line that's socially distanced at the drinking fountain. Let's talk about that expectation. You might even demonstrate it with kids and add it to your chart of expectations. You don't want to add too many. You really want to keep it kind of, short enough so that kids can remember it. But I think it's totally appropriate to say this week we're really working on socially distancing at the drinking fountains, and And let's actually practice that for a few minutes today and draw a diagram, or this is what it's going to look like so that it's super clear for everybody involved. And that was an awful example because we're not using drinking fountains as per the COVID training. But even if it's lining up at the bathroom or something like that. Questions about that so far?
No.
No, pretty self-explanatory.
Yes.
And then we want to use positive reinforcement. So we want to recognize those kids that are doing the right thing. Thank you so much. That could look like, you know, you're lining up and you're just saying, thank you, Ruby, so much for lining up correctly. Jose, you look great. Julio, fantastic. Esmeralda, you've been doing such a great job. Can I have you be the line leader today? We want to use positive language. So direct kids in a way that contributes to building a positive self-narrative. So this is something that doesn't always come natural when you do not have a lot of, don't have a lot of years working with kids or a lot of experience. So it's really thinking intentionally about the way we talk to kids and trying to make sure that you have a positive, transparent tone with kids. So for example, I mean, down here it says, let's do something else instead of stop doing that. So I want to practice rephrasing a little bit. It's like a muscle that you have to really practice sometimes to get it down it doesn't always come like right out of your mouth. And there's going to be times that we say things to kids in a way that you're going to reflect on later and go, man, I wish I could have rephrased that a different way. Every single person who works with kids always has those moments. It's nothing to be ashamed about. But what we can do is really practice the way we're framing it, and eventually it will become a second nature over time. So if you want to go to, I think it's page, you're going to skip through a whole bunch of stuff. Page 3 through 10 is that big like behavior guide. We're going to go past that and come back to it in a moment. But I think it's page 11. It says turn your words into gold. And there's a box there with some different phrases. So I want to, there's line up, quit breaking the rules of the game, stop arguing with me, stop talking, I'm trying to explain the activity. So I want you to pick one of those phrases and go ahead and jot down, ladies, you have pens, right? I didn't ask you, okay. Go ahead and jot down, how might you rephrase one of those sentences? And then your goal for, as you're rephrasing it, is you're trying to think of a way to rephrase it that is simple, positive, and transparent for the child, the particular child, or for the group. Give you another 10 seconds. Let me know if you need more than that. All right, ladies, would you be willing to share with me the phrase that you picked to change, and then how did you rephrase it?
I picked quit breaking the rules of the game and change it to follow the rules of the game so we can all have fun.
I love that. Follow the rules. What I like about the way you rephrased that was you gave them the why behind it. So you said, so we can all have fun. It's not like you're just this, tyrant who wants them to stay within the white line on the blacktop. There's a reason. It's going to keep it fun. It's going to keep it moving. The other piece that I would just maybe add to it is, and this is not, a knock on the way you rephrased it, but I've noticed this with new staff. Sometimes they what's the way I want to say that? Sometimes they will remind kids to behave, but then they skip the transparency part. So having them come back, one of my favorite behavior tools when I see kids breaking the rules of a game, quote unquote, is to say, okay, everybody freeze, come over here. We're going to have a quick huddle, take a knee. I like them to take a knee because then they're not moving around and I can see that they're paying attention. That's my personal preference. Take a knee. So I see that many people, or there's still some confusion, maybe not even point out who it is, but there's still some confusion about the boundaries. Can someone demonstrate and show me where the boundary is? Okay, what will we do if we cross that? Okay, great. The other thing, I do that a lot also with negative talk on the playground or negative talk during an activity where kids are saying, you cheated, or so-and-so keeps cheating. I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't actually know how to play, guys. Maybe that the rule isn't clear enough for him that is actually a boundary. Let's come back. If we're continuously making this mistake, let's just come back and try again and be really explicit. But yeah, I think that you rephrased that awesome. How about Maddie?
I picked the stop arguing with me.
Love that one.
I said, let's use calm voices to get to the root of our problem.
Oh, I love that, because what you did there was you reflected back that maybe that member was starting to raise their voice or starting to be coming across as aggressive. So you're reflecting that back, and they're going to take a second to think about that as they're continuing to engage. I think stop arguing with me is sometimes, I think you did exactly the right thing. I think I would, just to add one more piece to that, reflect back what you're seeing. So your voice is getting a little loud. I see you're starting to feel upset. Let's talk through what's upsetting you. And then if we have something deeper that's going on, maybe you and I can talk over here while the other kids play, or whatever it is. Stop arguing with me could also be like something during distance learning where kids you're saying, okay, it's time for you to join your Zoom meeting, and they're pushing back. Okay, well, instead of stop arguing with me, why don't you tell me the why behind what's going on? Or that's probably not a phrase I would use with kids, but I would say, what's really going on? I see that you're really upset. You don't want to join the Zoom class, even though it's on your schedule. So let's tell me what's behind that. Trying to get into that a little bit more. Arguing is sometimes something that happens when kids feel disempowered or like they are not in the control of the situation. So we also want to think about, like, what's the need that's not being met here that they're having this behavioral reaction,
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I want to go into some of our best practices. So we have this guide. So this long guide on page 3 through 10. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to briefly touch on it because I think one of our biggest questions that we used to get when we onboarded new people was, yeah, but what if they do this behavior specifically? Then what do I do to handle it? What's the Boys and Girls Club way that we handle it? And the honest truth is that there is no one best way for every kid. We can only have some guidelines there because certain behavior strategies work well with certain kids and specific behaviors, but they don't work for everybody. So it really depends on who the member is in front of you and what the behavior is and what's the history and the context. But we did create this guide, so the page 3 through 10, that has kind of, what we did was we outlined like a few bullets on the first page of like best practices. And then we actually went in and said, okay, the first time a member breaks the rules, quote unquote, or doesn't meet expectations. And then the second time, the third time, and then we even broke it down even further into different columns for if a member does this, what's the underlying need? What are some practice phrases you might use with that member? And what are some types of consequences that might happen for that member? So it's really long. I encourage you to definitely go through it and then keep it as a reference for you to come back to when, maybe after your first week at club, if you're driving home and you're like, oh, that one member, how could I set them up for success a little bit differently and you can always come back and reference it and kind of create a new strategy for yourself using this material. But what I would like to do is just kind of touch on those first bullets. I think it's on page 3. There, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's bulleted. There's like 6 to 8 kind of just best practices. Do you see what I'm looking at or saying?
I think it's on page 7.
Oh, maybe I'm on the wrong.
If we're talking about the guidelines for positive redirection still.
Yes. Oh,
okay,
I
yeah,
written
page
down
7.
the wrong page. Yeah, so I would love it if you two could, if one of you could read maybe the first 4 bullets and then the other person could read the other, I think it's 3 to 5. And it just kind of outlines like the first, it says positive redirection and restorative guide. And there's like a little blurb and then it kind of bullets out our guidelines.
I don't see that here.
Oh no, you don't see it?
No, that's physical and emotional safety.
Not on page 3, right?
Oh, this one, page 4.
I need to get a master copy while I do these to have from home instead of.
This one's also a positive read. This page?
Yeah. Is that like be aware of
It has
words?
a picture of a grown-up leaning down to talk to a kid on the first page.
Yeah, okay, it's 4.
Yeah.
Page 4. Okay, I'm going to change it on my notes. Thank you so much. Now you're learning, and now we're recording it, so every team member, whoever has to find it, will know that I did not know what page it was on. How embarrassing. All right, if I could please have maybe Molly, would you mind reading the first 3 or 4 bullets, and then we'll pass it to Maddie to finish?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Be aware of our word choices and body language and what they may unconsciously communicating to youth.
Mm-hmm.
Build connections and relationships with youth and foster relationships between youth. Set clear expectations at the start of every transition or activity and restate as needed. Check for understanding by asking members to repeat back expectations, elaborate on how expectations might play out in the activity, or physically demonstrate their understanding. For example, do a practice round.
Awesome.
Focus on positive reinforcement of desired behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Address behaviors that do not meet expectations immediately and consistently. Mm-hmm. Use positive redirection techniques to guide members in selecting positive behavior alternatives. Mm-hmm. Support members in identifying, coping, and restorative strategies for specific situations. Help members self-reflect on their progress and self-achievable behavior goals.
Amazing, Maddie. See, like, I think copying, that's great because then it makes me not feel ashamed that I didn't know what page it was on. So, like, now we're best friends.
I haven't read out loud in a while.
Yeah, totally. So those bullets are super robust strategies, and they're just small little bullets, but they're really like if you're struggling with a member, I would come back and just read those and think of which of these things am I not doing that I can start implementing. And I think they'll be very helpful. But like I said, I'm not going to get into each of the specific behaviors, but I want to kind of just think about these guidelines as it relates to a couple behavior scenarios. So if we keep your finger on that page because we're going to come back to it. But if you can go to, which is the behavior scenario, page 14, I think, has the 2 behavior scenarios, a box with 2 behavior scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if each of you want to pick one of those, I think the first one is a 9-year-old who can't play soccer, or the kids say, you can't play. And the second one is more of the cheating kind of incident that it's similar to the one we just talked about. Why don't you each pick one of those and then think, what would you do? You're in a group, you've got 15 kids, and this incident is happening. How would you handle it? And then if you want to flip back to that behavior guide and look at those bullets to help guide your thought process, please do so. Again, there's no perfect right answer. We do have a guideline or I think we have in that giant behavior guide, there's a sheet that has the boxes of what behavior, but I would encourage you, don't look at that. Let's just think about the guiding bullets you just read out and how you might apply them in this scenario. So go ahead. I'm going to set a timer for, I'm going to say 2.5 minutes, but let me know if you feel like you need more time or less time, but I'll set the timer. I got to figure out how to do my Spotify playlist for this part, you know, so you can listen to some cool tunes while we're doing this.
Why don't you yodel for us?
Yeah, I'll go yodel.
Perfect.
About 30 seconds left. Oh, that is time. Do you ladies need more time, or are you feeling like you finished that section?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
Molly, do you want to go first? Then we'll give Maddie another couple seconds.
Yeah.
Will you tell us
Okay.
which situation you picked, and then what would you do?
I picked the 9-year-old crying because he's being left out. I'd intervene by bringing those 2 kids over and ask them what's going on with the child, so-and-so. And I'd encourage them to remember our agreements that everyone can play. And then I would ask them both to be the coaches for that child and teach them the game.
Oh, I love it so much. Molly, you incorporated so many other best practices. Okay, that's it. You're hired. Yeah, I love that you did that. So I love that you had a shared expectation that everyone can play. That sometimes causes confusion in some of our clubs where team members think, oh, well, those kids want to play by themselves. Yeah, but we're at a club and we're a family, and we do have a shared expectation that we don't exclude anyone in our family. This is our club. We are playing together. Now maybe we need to take turns. That's an option, but we're not going to exclude anybody. So I love that you did that. And then the second piece, what was the second thing you did that was really cool?
Asking them to coach.
Yes.
The left out child.
Oh, I love that. I love that you empowered those kids to take it into their own hands to kind of build that community. So not only are they, actively going to do something with that younger member that's being left out and figure out their best way to incorporate them, but you're also, you're like acknowledging you do know what the expectation is, and you can make this even more fun because you add value to the situation. So getting the members to actually lead that is huge. I applaud you. Amazing. Maddie, did you choose the same situation or a different situation?
I wrote in both of them because I assumed that we'd pick the same one. So, and I did have a question about the first one. You kind of talked about it because the fact that like it's two kids playing together, like, and it's soccer, like they're playing pass or whatever. I mean, it's soccer. The other kid can jump in and like play pass with them. But like if they're like two best friends and they're having like a 15-minute like session like by themselves, they want to hang out by themselves for like that just a little bit. And like this kid comes up, like is there a way for me to allow them to play by themselves for that allotted amount of time? Or is that just like no, don't ever do that. Like make sure everyone's included always.
Yeah, I would not say that it's a strict like consequence that has to happen. With sometimes, so I'm picturing this actual situation happened in Roanoke Park where there was two fifth graders and then there was a third grader who wanted to play, and those two were the older kids were kind of passing back, and the younger kid came up to us and said, "They're not letting me play. They're big kids and they're being mean." And we called the older kids over. They're like, "We just want to kind of chill out by ourselves. Like, can we just like do this? Is that such a big deal?" And with the older kids, I kind of use this other strategy where you, similar to what Molly said, you mention, you're an older kid and you're setting the tone for this group. So this member right here is looking up to you. He wants to play with you because you guys are the cool older fifth graders that are playing soccer and he admires you. So why don't you go ahead and play with him for a while? Let's say 10 minutes. Why don't you do 10 minutes? Like I can put, if you put a time limit on it, it's more manageable for them to think through it that way. So why don't you try it for 10 minutes? If it really isn't working, then you can do something else. Yeah. And then it's like, also,
I just feel like it's unfair to like force the other kids to play with the kid if they don't want to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, of course, like kids are kids. They're going to want to play with other ones, but like,
Yeah.
That's
also those same fifth graders. I would also like not in front of the third grader, but I would say it's obvious that you guys are the oldest kids and you don't always want to play with the little kids, and that's fine. But maybe, let's try it for a little while. If it doesn't work out, you can, or if you're just over it and you don't want to, then you guys can come back to me and say, "You know what, Katie, I really just don't, we want to play by yourself," and that's fine. And we'll sit, then at that point we would do like a timer share system. So you guys can have the ball for this long and then this member will get a turn with it after. So it's not a one size fits all, and I think what it really comes down to, the big takeaway with these behavior things is, do you have, like, how well do you know your kids? And it's really hard when you're first coming in because you don't know the situation. But one thing I often notice with some of our new team members is they go straight to a consequence or, this is the expectation and we must not break it, over spending the time getting to know the kids in your group and really building that trust and that mutual respect with them. Because then if you have that trust and mutual respect built, you can say, "Roberto, is it going to kill you to really play for 10 minutes with Thomas? Like, is that really going to bother you too much to really just spend it?" You're a leader and he looks up to you. Then Roberto might be like, "All right, I'll do it." But if he's just like, "You know what, I really just want to play with my friend," then you can allow for that too. And maybe think of something else, like for the younger member, you can play right now. The boys have the soccer ball. In 15 minutes, you'll get a turn. But right now you can kind of make those calls, right? Okay. Depending on the situation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing, just briefly about the behavior scenarios, is when you come into your club and your new group of kids, a really cool way to kind of speed up that trust process is to talk to your director, your club lead, about what's the deal with each of these kids. Tell me the backstory with each of the kids. What are their triggers that you've noticed? What's the families like? And kind of, you can get a shortcut into a little bit more information, but I still wouldn't skip getting to know each of the members. And the last thing on that is, with the trust, often team members, we're not, each of us come to the club with our own emotional baggage, our own childhood experiences, our own things that bother us about kids, and not just maybe not just kids in particular, but maybe just specific types of behaviors rub us the wrong way, and it's different for every adult. I would just reflect on that. So as, again, I use an example of as you're driving home, that's when I guess I do my deepest thinking. But as you're driving home, if you're thinking about, oh, this member, I wish I had handled that differently, or why is this member in particular just coming up for me over and over again as a behavior issue? What is it that I'm, what is being triggered here? And just start to self-reflect about it. Because, we're all humans. We all have our own things going on. But I would challenge you and encourage you that if you're having that member who keeps coming up on your drive home for you, I would encourage you to do your best to make best friends with that kid. I would go out of my way to make sure to have one-on-one time with that member and get to know them and build that trust, because your life will just it'll make it so much easier if you find the commonalities that you have in common with this member, and you can start to like share stories and laugh and be silly. Because then when you come to the other side of trying to hold them accountable for expectations, you have kind of that shared understanding already built, and they'll want to behave better for you when that happens.
Yeah.
That's my tip and trick, ladies. Some tips and tricks for you. That being said, any other questions about, that was the quick and dirty behavior training. So quick and dirty in 42 minutes. But this is the struggle, this topic is where new folks usually have the most challenges and struggles. So what I would just to repeat like the key learnings, I would create shared expectations with the group from day one. I would make sure to make friends with the kids that are triggering you and build trust. And then check in with your director and keep coming back to this guide as you are noticing patterns of behavior or things that you need support with dealing and enabling you to support those kids with their behavior. Yeah, we're going to get into the tracking of behavior trends a little bit, but questions so far? I know that was really quick and real fast. Now, any particular behavior that you're thinking of that maybe you handled in the past that you're kind of like, what if this happened at Boys and Girls Club? What should I do? Do you have any fears like that you want to talk through? Go ahead. Yep.
When they math homework, when they want help with their math homework, and it's done Common Core style, and I don't know how to do it that way, how do I help them?
I love it. This is a real type of question this is stuff that is actually coming up in our clubs. So
that's points if they don't do it that way.
Yeah. So different teachers have different strategies. So this is what we're finding. We have so many different districts across our clubs, and our partners, each of our district partners is so different from each other. But there are some clubs, and I think this is true of Windsor, where they have the Seesaw app. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Nope.
Where the teacher will assign assignments on it, and then kids can actually do the work on the computer and hit submit, and it turns in their assignments. And the teachers will actually, so in their Zoom class, they will do like an introductory lesson. Usually, so if they're doing a Common Core math thing, for example, they might learn it as a group in Zoom, and then need to go back to complete assignments on that topic. And that's where you would get tapped like, hey, I need help with this. What is she asking me to do? Luckily, many of the teachers are putting those directions for those lessons and little video clips, either of them teaching it or from like YouTube, embedded there for kids to reference, which is awesome because that means we can reference it. But if there's a situation where there is something and you're like, I really just legitimately do not know what your teacher is asking here, then this is something that our team struggled with at the beginning a lot, because they thought, what is our role? Is our role to complete every single assignment with kids, or is it to, we had team members getting burned out because they're like, they have 22 assignments and they're struggling. We have a lot of kids that are falling behind that are just like special needs type of kids that now more than ever are really struggling with the Zoom, interface with the teachers. So we had to clearly define with the schools and our club leads, like, what is our role? I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm getting somewhere, I promise. So we actually sat down with the club leads and defined, and the teachers. So the teacher's role is to educate kids and to keep their attention engagement in Zoom, and to, correct their assignments, and provide feedback to the families on how they're doing educationally, academically. And then for us, our main role is really to provide a safe, supportive environment for our kids to complete their distance learning. So while we really do want to make sure every single assignment is completed 100% and correct and turned in, that's not our main role. Our main role is to watch the group and see if somebody is starting to have a meltdown because they are struggling with that math problem. We are the ones who are saying, let's tap you on the shoulder. Do you need a drink of water? You want to go run to the basketball hoop and back? You want to do 10 jumping jacks? Like, do you want to go play Simon Says for a minute? Do you need a snack? So that's what we are doing. That's our number one role. We do want to support kids, but there's also the cool thing about these apps is that the kids also can chat with their teachers. So they can even open up a chat or send a message like, hey, I really didn't understand that lesson. My staff is trying to help me and we are both confused. And they can just submit that like response and then move on to the next thing. So you're not just stuck there struggling with this member for 15 minutes. Get what you can get done and then let the teacher know where the struggle is and keep going,
Okay.
I just talked a lot again. Any other things that you're thinking about as you transition to clubs that you're like, I kind of not sure how I would handle this? And we don't need to have all the answers now, but I might be able to support.
I think we might have to call you later in the week.
Yeah, after you kind of have done it for a few days. Yeah, totally. I think usually what happens is I think you both will get some shadow time in your new club. So hopefully you'll have at least a few hours of shadowing so you can kind of observe how this is working. So you can kind of have the box to put your experience in, And then as time goes on, you can check in with your club leads. They're there on campus with you. So you're never alone. You might be alone in a classroom with your 15 kids, but you have a walkie. You can always say, hey, Jenny, can you support me? So in Healdsburg, it's just one big room. So Jenny will probably be in the room with you and can help. And then for Molly, that's Molly because she has Jenny. Maddie in Windsor is divided into different spaces, but I think that you guys are now going to have a co-team member in the space with you also, in addition to this. But Michael Gomez is the director there. He's only a walkie away. He can come in. He has the whole thing down. Yes, I'm glad. Quick and dirty, but we're getting somewhere. So I want to talk a little bit about incidents and accidents. So I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to, I think it's page 15 through 17. So all that is, there's just a copy of the forms. So there's an accident form and an incident, I think it's called accident report, incident report, and a follow-up report. That is a paper version of what those look like. And before I kind of get into that a little bit, I want to clarify for you the difference. So an incident is an intentional act or event that is disrespectful, dangerous, or destructive. And then an accident is an unintentional act or event involving injury to either a club member or team member. So I think accidents are kind of easier to understand. So they're the ones that, the kid trips and scrapes their knee. We want to still do like a little accident report so the parents know why they're coming home with a big bandage on their knee and know what steps were taken to help support that kid. But an incident is a little bit more insidious. It's so it could be something like a member yelled at you, or said something in the heat of the moment, really upset and yelled at you. Now that's not something that caused like an obvious harm to you, but it's still an inappropriate behavior that doesn't follow the club expectations, and we should probably document it to see if there's a pattern happening and where you need support. This could also be something like an angry parent shows up to club and is really upset that we I don't know, we're not going to be open on Veterans Day or whatever it is that, that we still would want to record and track that. So I included those paper forms, but they're actually all online now. So just like when you walked into the Youth Impact Center and you did that barcode, the QR code to do your health check, there is a QR code at your club for an incident and accident. And the reason we have it set up that way is because it's so much easier for us to just track all the data, because we do use those. Why, you ask, do we record and report incidents and accidents? Great question. We use it for these three purposes. So we want to identify threats to physical and emotional safety. And then the cool thing about using it in the QR code, it makes it really easy. It populates into an Excel spreadsheet where we can look at trends across, like even in an individual club, we might say, oh, the Windsor Club has a really low rate of bullying. We're not seeing anything like that happen, but we do notice that in the hallway, kids keep walking into this low-hanging wall. I just made that up. That's not a thing that is at Windsor, but whatever it is, some safety thing that keeps happening. And then across clubs, so we're able to track things that happen, if we're all having the same issue across clubs, or a cluster of clubs is having the same type of behavior and they need support, then that helps us to design trainings for staff, and also, purchase equipment if we need it, whatever is happening there, we can address it in a bigger way, which is cool. And from there, we can inform our practice through policies and procedures. So that's where a lot of the examples and information came for the positive redirection and restorative guide, came from issues that clubs were having or that they wanted clarity on. So we put it all together in that big document. The other thing that helps us with is creating our culture of safety at club. It's kind of like a red flag to us if we notice that for 6 weeks or I don't know, any length of time, there is a club that has not reported any accidents or incidents. Then we go, really? What's happening there? Let's dig in. Is it really there's no accidents and incidents happening? Or is it that we're just not catching it? Or what's going on there? This also kind of plays into, I think Holly talked to you a little bit about mandated reporting. We want to create a culture where our team knows that we do track issues, and so that we can address them. So I hate to say this, but there are some folks in the world that want access to young people for the wrong reasons. And sometimes they try to work at our clubs or, find kids in youth development situations. And we're not into that. We are not okay with that. So if we are talking about, hey, CPS reporting and incidents and accidents, that is a deterrent also to those people from trying to come into our environment. That culture of safety. I also just with COVID, I'll share a quick anecdote. I was in the Roanoke Park Club over summer with a group of 12 kids. I was subbing in there for a week. And I had a fellow team member who was totally well-meaning, well-intentioned, but she kept coming into my classroom to borrow supplies, which from the COVID training that we're not really supposed to be interacting across groups as much as possible. So every classroom has your own set of supplies that you shouldn't need to share that between groups without sanitizing. And it's rare that you would need to share like scissors, for example, because every group has their own. So I had to say to that team member, hey, I actually love seeing another human adult face because I miss humans from Corona since pre-Corona. But I have to say, we're really not supposed to be walking into each other's spaces because we want to keep down the level of exposure if possible. And so it's just a quick culture of safety. If the more that you actually speak up, the more it becomes like a quick, easy thing that doesn't create anxiety in the pit of your stomach. It's just it's something that becomes more and more comfortable to do over time. And everyone's coming from a good place most of the time. So it's like just a reminder, Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that is all I wanted to say on that. So I will say about completing reports that for incidents and accidents, usually what will happen is a director might start an incident or accident report, because, you know, if somebody does scrape their knee, you might send them to that director and they can get that member what they need. But they might also ask you to start it, or they might start it and then ask you to finish it or fill in the details that are missing. So yeah, I think usually when I was a club lead, I would have the staff do it on the paper and then turn it to me, and I would use the QR code to kind of flush out the rest of it. But you might be asked to add in your specific details. And then same for the CPS reports. So on page, I think it's page 19 is an example child services report that if you feel like, or if a member, so I talked a lot about building trust with kids. When you do that, members might disclose stuff to you that's going on in their personal lives. They often do. They can't help it. And sometimes we have had kids report that there's stuff going on at home or in their lives that is not safe for them. And I'm talking about child abuse, neglect, or threats to their physical or emotional safety that are happening. And when that happens, I know Holly mentioned that we are all, oh, here's the slide. We are all mandated reporters. So we do have an obligation to report that to CPS because we cannot ever justify sending kids home to an unsafe environment. If you are not sure, the member discloses something to you and you're like, I don't even know if that means anything. You know, I know that this member didn't feel good, but does that indicate something else is going on, or is it just like a home culture, or what is it? You can always talk to your director about it, and sometimes they can provide a little bit more insight, like, oh yeah, they used to be in a situation where they were sleeping in their car, but now they're not, or, you know, whatever, because the directors usually know the home life, or a little bit more about the home life of our kids. And if the director maybe doesn't know or finds out that, for example, somebody is recently homeless that's in our club, we would probably reach out to the school as well so we can help coordinate resources for this family to support them. But if you ever tell your director something, or your club lead, I think is what we're calling it now, and your club lead says, you know, yeah, it's not really a big reason, we're not going to report that because it's not a big deal, and you're driving home again at night and you still have a pit in your stomach, please go ahead and make that report. You don't need the permission of your club lead to make a report. It just usually is helpful when you tell your club lead so we can help to gather support services. But if you ever feel like you know that something might happen to a kid that goes home and leaves our space, we definitely want to make sure that we take all precautions necessary to make sure those kids are safe. And then I just included that like CPS report form so that you can see the types of questions that will be asked if you do call and make a report. So they are going to fill out a version of that form on the computer. So they'll ask you those questions over the phone. And often the number one thing that the person who does the intake call will do is say, okay, but we need a little bit more information. Can you call back with more details? So you might be asked to go back to that club member and say, is this something that happens often? Or, you know, what's the situation? And get some clarifying details. And that might be something that you could say, I don't feel comfortable, I want my club lead to do it. Or if you feel like you can navigate that and build on that kind of relationship, that trust relationship that you've built to find out more, then that might be an option as well. Questions about that, the heavy stuff? I don't know if either of you have had to make a CPS report before.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got a little bit of experience with that. Okay. Yeah. So it's not a fun part of our job, but it is, you know, our number one priority is child safety. So it is something that we might need to do. And then we do have our club safety document, which is definitely, hopefully, on page 20 and 21. I think it says at the top, club safety doc no, it says ensuring the safety of children is fundamental to the mission of BGC. And that document, I don't know if Holly also printed a second copy for you. You might have that in the papers that she gave you, a second copy of that. If not, we're going to ask you to sign that at the bottom when we're done talking about it and show it to your club lead to track. I don't know if I remembered to have her print out that as well. Are you guys seeing it in your shuffle of papers?
Yeah.
The second copy. Oh, you do have it? Okay. So if you scroll down, basically that document was included because it's our most recent club policies that were updated during the school year last year. So this doesn't have like COVID considerations. You guys already did a waiver for COVID in the last training. This one is about other more general things, like we don't take members in our cars, etc. So what I would love to do, again, I'm gonna call on you guys to do some public reading, if that's okay. At the bottom, towards I guess the second page, I believe it's on the second page, are kind of our main bullets that are bolded. I believe they're bolded. Are you seeing what I'm talking about?
Like parents or guardian is expected to sign members out daily, that list?
Yes, thank you. I was
Okay.
like, I need to print my own copy so I can see it. I did. It's such a big handbook. I'm like, I don't need it. I memorized. I put it together, but I actually probably need it. That I don't think we need to read all of the bullets out loud because I think the last 3 or 4 are just more about like the fact that we do training and those things. But the first few I do want to highlight. So if you guys actually, Molly, would you start and read the first one, and we'll just kind of we'll go back and forth between you and Maddie, and then I'll stop you when I get to the part that I think is not as important.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Parents or guardian is expected to sign members out daily.
Okay. I'll just say quickly, sorry, Maddie, I might keep interrupting you guys. On that, the question we always get from staff is, okay, well, the parent is outside the building texting their kid to come out because it's time to go home. They actually have to come into the building, or not. With COVID, they're not coming into the building, but they do need to, right now they're pulling up in their car and the director is outside, and the director will then call for the member from the building. So we do need somebody from club with eyes on the person picking up each child, so that we know that they are somebody that's either their parent or somebody on their emergency contact list picking them up. I just wanted to clarify. Go ahead, Maddie.
Club, phone, and email are encouraged for an additional communication method if face-to-face is not possible.
Yes, so on that one, we don't need to ever give out your personal your personal phone number or anything like that to kids because we have a club phone. So if the kid needs to get a hold of you for some reason, they should be contacting you through the club phone, and then we can take it from there. Go ahead, Molly.
Volunteers are never alone with kids. They are always matched with a staff person to ensure safety and supervision in every club space.
Yeah, so on that, we did pass an organizational policy last year that we are doing a 1 child per bathroom at a time kind of policy. And that might be another bullet as well, but that's the volunteer part is helping me remember that in the front of my brain. So for volunteers, we would never, ever allow them to take kids to and from the bathroom by themselves, even though that seems like an easy thing for a volunteer to do. Right now, it's not a big deal because we don't actually have volunteers in clubs, and the volunteers we do have are virtual. So it's not an issue, but just going forward, as we do start to reopen, something to think about. We don't ever want to leave a kid alone with a volunteer, as per our club culture of safety policy. Right. Go ahead, next bullet.
Okay. Club staff are not allowed to have outside contact with members.
Yes. So go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
You want me to finish it? Because it's okay. This includes in person, via phone or text, and all social media online outlets. All pre-existing relationships must be communicated with HR.
Right. Did Holly touch on that one with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you do have pre-existing relationship, not a big deal. You just need to let us know because, sometimes we have cousins or nephews or nieces or something in our same club. totally appropriate and fine. We just need to know the nature of the relationship so that it's clear and we don't have any misunderstandings. Next bullet.
Club staff are never in one-on-one situations with kids. We know we can better keep kids safe if they are always in group situations.
Yes. So back to the bathroom one more time. Right now, the way it's working with COVID is that if a member needs to go to the bathroom, we allow them to go to the bathroom, obviously. And they can, different clubs, you might have a bathroom pass or a different procedure for that. The idea is we don't want kids congregating in the bathroom, even peer on peer. So usually, like I think at Windsor, they get on the walkie and say, is there any, actually at Windsor, I think that each group might have their own assigned bathrooms. But if there is 2 classes sharing a set of bathrooms, then there's a clear protocol. So they might say, sending a boy to the front bathroom, is the front bathroom open? And they'll say yes, and then you can send them. That's partly because, we don't want kids all congregating because of COVID, but also because there was a spike, or not a spike, but I guess Boys and Girls Club National, they track incident and accidents just the way we do. And they noticed that the hot spot for behavior nationally, negative behavior nationally, was the bathroom. And it's because it's largely unsupervised, the door's closed. And there was, peer on peer sexual abuse and grown up with child abuse was where it did happen. It was most often in the bathrooms. So we took that policy from Boys and Girls Club National and said, we are going to make sure this never happens. So we have the 1 child at a time in the bathroom rule for that purpose. But with COVID, again, if we can separate kids, or if we can take the whole group to the bathroom at a time, because there's a lot of disinfecting now that is happening that wasn't happening in the past, that makes it easier for disinfecting. So I would probably have right on your way outside at 10 o'clock to take a break to go play outside for a minute, I would have them all stop and use the bathroom, wash their hands, and then on the way back in, stop and wash your hands, use the bathroom. If you're standing right there, we're not thinking there's going to be an issue with a group of kids, a couple at a time going to the bathroom with an adult right there. But we just in the future don't want more than 1 kid at a time in the bathroom. Bathroom. How many times do I have to say bathroom? Okay. Okay, what is the next bullet?
Club staff cannot drive kids in their personal vehicles.
We do have vans that you can check out that in the summer for summer field trips. We would do that a lot with middle school campers. But right now we're not taking kids off campus, so it's not an issue, but just a good rule of thumb to know. And what that boils down to is we don't drive kids home either in our personal vehicles. Yeah. Next bullet.
1 member is allowed into the restroom at a time unless supervised by club staff.
Nailed it. I so nailed that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think those are the main ones. What's the next one, just so I'm making sure I'm not.
Club staff may not take photos of members on their personal devices.
Oh, yeah. I should just touch on that. Every once in a while, there's really cute things that our kids do, and we love them, and we want to take a photo. Even if we just want to, take it home, print it, and then put it on our bulletin board when we get back to club so the whole club can see it. We are not allowed to take photos, though, on our phones. So what that means is we'll just ask your club lead, who does have permission to take photos. They have the photo releases. They have on all of the member registration forms, parents can indicate whether it's okay if we take photos. So the director can come in, know who that kid is, and if they have the waiver or not, take a picture, and then we can use that photo to create that club decor that you want to have in your space. So the director can help you take pictures and put them up. And actually, it is really cool if you want to capitalize on that, because then the kids see themselves reflected in the space. And, with recognition and everything, if we can take photos of kids with their certificates of Youth of the Month or whatever cool recognition that we invented at our club and hang it up, then we do want to do that. So I don't want to deter you from doing that. but just use either a club camera or have the director use their phone and print it for you.
Okay.
And what's the next one? I forgot how many bullets there were.
It's about reporting child abuse.
Okay, then I think that's the end of the ones that I wanted to emphasize. The others are just indicating, so that club safety policy that you're looking at is also given to our families when they register. So it's just good reference for you to also know that parents do know these things. But yeah, I think that's it on that. So if you two have any questions on it, you can definitely let us know. But then I do want you to, your next step will be signing that document at the bottom of the page. And then we will, if you don't have if it's not gosh, I can't say this. If Holly didn't give you a separate piece of paper with that same document, then we'll just have you sign that one in your workbook to show your club lead. And you'll do that on your first day. If she did give you a second handout, then we should turn that into Holly on the way out today. But I don't know. Did she give you one or no?
I don't think so.
Think so.
She
I
didn't
think
give
that
us a
happened last
two-page
time too.
handout.
Okay. So I'll just have you sign that one, and I'll have Jenny and Michael. You can show it to them on your first day, and they'll send us an email saying that you did sign it. So we'll know.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna rip it out.
Yay. Okay. So now I guess our last kind of reflection. You can do it in your workbook, but I think in the interest of time, I'll just ask you ladies to kind of share out. What is, thinking about all of that quick and dirty stuff that we talked about in the last hour, what is your kind of your number one takeaway in your role in keeping your kids safe in your group? You can take a second, and then when you're ready, you can go ahead and let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, I like the prevent rather than intervene concept. And also, I like the tip of calling, instead of saying, let's all follow the rules. If there's somebody that's not following the rules, just one student, then you bring that person to you and explain.
I love that, especially for our older kids that just developmentally feel like they're on stage a lot, like having them, not calling them out in front of the group, but just taking them aside is like such a big winner. And it helps you to create trust with that age group. So awesome. Good takeaways.
Yeah, my favorite takeaway thing that stuck with me the most is that, you know, like we're helping them with schoolwork and we're like doing all that stuff, but we're not their teacher, we're not their educator, we're not necessarily even their tutor. We're like there to be a safe space for them to come and feel safe and loved and wanted, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I 100% agree with you, Maddie. And it's like, what can we really do to make a difference in this crazy world? And it's if we can if we have an environment that we are holding the expectation with the kids, that it's a positive environment where we treat each other nicely, we are actually creating a protective factor to guard against isolation and all kinds of other down the road mental illness types of things. Just by creating that safe, positive environment. It's huge. And like building connections with kids is our number one job right now. We do want to track assignment completion, and we want to have our finger on the pulse of what's getting done. But honestly, that's how you make a difference in the life of a kid, is by being that safe, supportive person, which is very rewarding if you think about it that way. Beautiful ladies. Well, I just want to let you know there is a member handbook. I mentioned that parents have seen that club safety document that you signed. That's part of the member handbook that all the parents get. That's currently like being revised with all the COVID stuff. So I'm not going to, that's not included in your workbook, but just so you know, it does exist. And then next we have this last part on the principles of youth development. Before we get into that, do either of you need to take like a 3 to 5 minute break to like use the restroom, get a drink of water, anything like that? I know I've been talking for a long time.
I'm good. I'm okay for now.
I'm fine.
Good. Okay, cool. So this last part, let's see. So if it's 1:54, my goodness, we are probably going to go till 2:30. Let's see, at least 2:15. Okay. So this used to be a much larger part of this training I mentioned because we used to have a whole different piece about bringing program activities to life for kids. But knowing that the current situation is a lot of distance learning support and not a lot of time for Boys and Girls Club program type activities, we have slimmed this down, mostly because we do not want to put pressure on you guys to be creating and bringing these awesome activities to life with kids when you just don't have the time. One thing that we're noticing is that usually when our COVID classes or cohorts are adding a group, there's like this beautiful like arc that we're seeing where the first 2 to 3 weeks, there's a little bit of fear in everybody's eyes. You're like trying to get it together, getting to know your kids, getting the schedule down, knowing when each kid has their each Zoom meeting and making sure everyone has all their passwords. And then after that, it really starts to plateau and we're starting to sneak back in all of our program stuff that we used to do. They used to be kind of the forefront of what we do with kids. So it is starting to happen. So I think if you saw in that COVID training, there's like, we're starting to get back to like formal recognition as a club and team spirit and coming up with like every class has its own name and its own mascot and its own shout out and its own cheer. So we are slowly getting there, but I'm just going to give you a hint of it because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed with it as you're just getting your bearings in your new position. So I'll give you a taste and then know that there'll be more to come after you feel more comfortable. But this is kind of our BGCA, so Boys and Girls Club National formula for impact. So we take our young people who need us the most, they're so cute. We give them an awesome outcome-driven club experience, and then hopefully that's going to result in these priority outcomes. So you take young kids, you put them in the club, and they come out being academically successful. They have great character and citizenship, and they choose to lead healthy lifestyles. So that is huge. Those are huge priority outcomes. They're so big. And you kind of look at that like, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to get from that kid to that outcome? And the truth is, it's about providing an intentional experience for kids. And these kind of 4 key things here in black are the way that we do that. Like these are the ways that we're intentional with our time with kids. So we have our 5 key elements for positive youth development. So that's the how we do what we do, which we're going to take each of those 5 key elements and I'll preview each of them for you. We provide high yield activities. So what that is, it's like fun with a purpose. So we're going to do an activity, but we're going to make it fun. Or an intentional activity, but we're going to bring it to life. And then our targeted programs, this is the piece I was saying we don't have a lot of time for anymore, but this was from 2 to 4 p.m. or, from 2 to 6 p.m. This is what the activities we're actually running with kids. So right now there is some time in our schedule, like on Wednesdays, many school districts opt to have minimum days on Wednesdays. So we get the kids for a little bit longer on those days. And that's when you might find something like a targeted, intentional, fun activity that we've designed that we provide to the kids. And then also for the clubs that are open later, like there's some clubs open till 5:30. And for those clubs, we have a little bit of time to try to slide in some more intentional activities as well. And then we want kids to keep coming every day and we track their attendance. I know you saw a version of this in the COVID training, but basically, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but you can see that from 8 to 10 and 10:30 to 12:30 and then 12:30 to 2:30, there's a lot of distance learning support. So depending on which shift you will be working, whether you're an opener or a closer, openers will have their job will mainly be around that supporting distance learning. And some folks, if you are open till 5:30 and you are closing, then you would have more time to come up with those intentional program activities with a little bit of prep time for how to design those, or given to you to help prep and design those. But a bulk of our day right now is really just supporting kids with their school. So here's our 5 key elements. We're going to take them one at a time. So just a little preview. This is a fun, cool diagram, but I'm going to break it out. So we talked already about how we provide the safe, positive environment. We talked about physical and emotional safety, behavior management, and creating that culture of safety. In addition to that, we are the keepers of creating these supportive relationships. So the way we do that, we want to really have a good understanding of child development. So right now, this training is too short to kind of include that, but do know that we are planning to provide all of our new hires with some kind of training in child development so that you can see the ages and stages and what to kind of expect from kids at different places in their development. We also, when we talk to members or we ask them to do things, we're trying to use a strength-based approach. So we're thinking about growth mindset. We really want to recognize kids for enduring their struggle rather than just getting it right. So we're not just always celebrating, oh, this team won, but we're talking about the teamwork they used to get there and what was the journey like, and trying to recognize that so they can help build those skills and have a positive self kind of reflection on that. We talked about trust and mutual respect and how important that is. And we talked a little bit about open-ended questions and finding time with kids to really get to authentically talk to each member so they know that you do care about them and you are interested in them and you want to build that connection. And now we're getting into expectations and opportunities. So for this, the expectations speaking to the routines and the visual and verbal reminders. So we talked about having group agreements posted, but this is also like having blue painter's tape on the floor so kids know where they're supposed to line up, or having a a bell that you ring, which means it's free time. Whatever those cool little clues are for kids to help them be their best selves, and then setting up the room and the routine and the schedule of the day to support them in achieving those goals. Then for opportunities, that is more about offering a balanced menu of activities for kids and time to build in and reflect on themselves and their behavior and what they achieved. So while now we don't necessarily have huge program chunks available, like 60 minutes at a time to fill with activities for kids, we're going to go do kickball or cooking or arts and crafts, we can still offer a balance of activities to kids in between their classes. So if they're finished early with distance learning, they did their independent work, and now they're ready for a break, this is where we come in and come up with fun things for them to do. So whether it's a mural that's right now, I think that Roseland Club has this big Halloween mural on the wall where kids are just provided with basic arts and crafts, and they can just keep adding to that cool club decor and that, they're making paper chains all over the room to decorate for Halloween. But not just arts activities, but also having opportunities to go outside and play Simon Says or play, silly Halloween minute to win it types of challenges, so that they have something to look forward to. And when I say member reflections, we're talking about time at the end, some built-in time, even if it's at the end of the day, to just bring the group together and reflect, or even one-on-one, how did their day go? What was their favorite part of their day? What was challenging today? What are you proud of today about what you accomplished? That gets into recognition. So we talked about recognizing the kids that are doing the right thing, but also providing encouragement as they are struggling. And then when we talk about formal and informal, you might have seen this in the COVID training. So they have examples such as like a shout out board where the kids, whenever they want, can write a shout out to another kid and they can hang it on the wall. And then once a week they get read out loud and taken home. Or it can be more informal, where it's just, you lined up and you're saying, wow, Andrea did a great job lining up. I'm going to do a little happy dance because Andrea lined up, ooh, I love my happy dance for Andrea, whatever it is, becomes something silly and funny that kids are stoked on and want to see you do that funny dance. So they're going to keep doing the right thing. We want it to be authentic, not just, oh yeah, I love your picture you drew, but actually, what do you like about it? What specifically do you like about it? We try to keep it real with the members because it does feel very much different. I'm sure all of us have had authentic versus inauthentic praise, and you can tell it doesn't feel as good. And then we want to make sure that it's consistent. So that means like building in time so that it doesn't get forgotten. Whether that's on Wednesdays when you have less work to do, or the end of the week on a Friday, or at a certain time throughout the day, right when you come in from lunch, whatever it is, but making sure that we do get to check that box of providing that for kids. Now, this is my favorite part. Fun and sense of belonging is the most important thing. I really think right now in the new world, this is it. This is what's going on. If you have secret hidden talents, Maddie and Molly, like we had a new team member who said, oh yeah, I can play the ukulele. I was like, what? Please bring your ukulele to the Boys and Girls Club. Oh my gosh. So any kind of creative, fun, cool things that you get excited about that spark you, bring it into the club. And then find those little pockets with kids where you can share your talents or get creative. We can build on the things that you love and enjoy, and magically, it's almost magically, kids start to love and enjoy them too, just because you do. It's kind of cool. And with creativity, also like theme days, like if you're thinking about maybe you're really into, I don't know, I just saw the movie The Labyrinth again with my family this weekend. Maybe you do a Labyrinth theme day. Like, what's your favorite movie or favorite show? Incorporate the kids with it and then come up with something fun. Or if you notice the kids are really into, this is happening at which club is it? The Ella Club. The kids are obsessed with roly-polies. So the team member there created this Lego challenge where the kids go hunt for roly-polies, bring them in, and then they build little Lego homes for them.
That's
and
so
they
cute.
It's so cute.
That's
and the
so
kids
cute.
love it. And it was just the team member capitalizing on the kids' like interest and making it a thing. It's just it's whatever you want to make it a thing, it'll happen. So there's the youth input piece too. She saw that they were into roly-polies. She's like, all right, I'm going to tailor this experience to your needs.
So good.
But asking the kids, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to play kickball? Let's make it a little bit more creative. What can we do to make it more fun? And if a kid says, let's run the bases backwards, well, let's try running the bases backwards. Let's get their input. Opportunities for leadership. I think Molly was talking about that earlier about, now you've been an amazing, you've shown me that you have met the expectations every day for a week doing, I don't know, I'm lining up. Of course, that's the most boring one. That's the one I'm thinking of. So I want you to now be the line leader, or I want you to teach the members about how to use the soccer ball or how to actually make a goal because you're an awesome human. And then having choice. So not just saying we're definitely on Mondays we do kickball, on Tuesdays we do wiffle ball or whatever it is, but offering a choice to the kids and letting them choose. Mm-hmm. And then offering a diverse range of experiences. And then a little bit about spontaneity, but just finding those moments with kids that are downtime and being silly and spontaneous. They live for that. Did I give my example about Cat Day and the COVID training? Mm-hmm. Did you guys hear that?
No, Cat Day.
Okay, well, I have to tell you. So my son is a second grader, and he is in a distance learning program at the Boys and Girls Club in Sonoma. And he was like, Mom, there's a cat day coming up at Boys and Girls Club. And I'm like, you can't bring your cat to the club. What are you talking about? He's like, no, it's cat day. It's really exciting. We're going to make ears and tails. And, he had this whole thing. And I was like, I still fully don't know what cat day is. But I do know that he was just so excited about it for 48 hours, like 2 days leading up to it. And then he had cat day and came home with a certificate that said like cat-tastic. And I still don't even know what happened, but I know that he got a huge kick out of it.
So
So
cute.
just, whatever inside jokes you have with your group, or, you decide that your mascot is going to be, one club actually has their group is called the Cool Kids, and they decided that their theme mascot is the rocket ship. And so everything they do has like rockets all over it, an outer space theme, and whatever your inside joke is with the kids, or whatever that is fun, capitalize on it, capitalize on it, capitalize on it, capitalize on it. Because the kids are going to go home, and that's what their experience is. That's what they're going to talk about, and that's the piece they're going to remember. They're not going to remember doing the new math. Okay. So long story short, if you put all these key components of youth development together, that creates that really the robust part of that member experience. And I know it's a lot at once, but over time you'll see that this is what the club is designed to do. So the club leads, they have this shared language about these 5 key elements. And so these are the things that we're starting now to be able to come back and focus on now that we have our distance learning down. We're trying to make sure that all of these pieces do not fall to the wayside. So what is one way you might think, here's your 5 key elements in the circles here, which one stands out to you, and then how do you think it might show up in a Boys and Girls Club? You can take a second to look at those, and then whichever one stands out to you, I want to hear about it.
I like safe, positive environment because the Healdsburg Club doesn't have anything on its walls, and I love crafts and signs and all that. So I can foresee decorating those walls.
Oh, Molly, I'm so happy to hear you. So you were actually you've seen the Healdsburg Club already. That's awesome.
Yes.
Perfect.
I went there and met Jenny for a couple hours.
Oh, great, great. So you can picture this training in action. I love it. Cool. Yes, please go. I mean, that Healdsburg Club has so many spaces too that can be utilized. If you do have any time to do programs, you can bring them in the art room, or and cover the walls. Make them beautiful. Make them exciting and joyful. Please. What about you, Maddie? What stands out for you?
Probably fun and sense of belonging.
Yes.
I mean, it's straightforward. I mean, the sense of belonging is, I want the kids to just be. I'm just so excited to be a bright spot in their life. Hopefully,
you will be.
I want them to just know that I like them, and that they're,
Yeah. Just the heart of what you're saying is just so beautiful, and I really think if you just you're consistently showing up for them, and you're asking them, and you're interested, that that sense of belonging is just gonna naturally occur. And I really feel I'm excited to have both of you, because your responses are just so thoughtful and heartfelt, and I can tell that the kids are just gonna get a kick out of working with you ladies. Very cool. I'm gonna not ask about the reinforcing because I don't want to pressure everybody. And I want to make sure we get to the next piece so you have these last resources. So I think Holly showed you this slide before, but I get to talk about the red circles. So I'll start from the bottom. BGCSonoma-Marin.org. That is our organizational website. You might have gotten your employee applications and stuff from there. That is our outward facing kind of website for families. So if you are asked something by a parent asks you, and your director is missing, or not missing, but maybe they're off early or something that day, and a parent has questions, you can direct them to, like, if there's an upcoming holiday or things like that, they might be posted on our website. You could also give them your club lead's email address. Is totally appropriate for everybody. It's their first initial last name at bgcsonoma-marin.org, with that little hyphen between Sonoma and Marin. And that kind of feeds into the top one, which is the bgca.net. So while we don't ask our coordinators to get we're not going to give you guys necessarily a bgc-sonoma-marin.org account, like an email account, because you won't be needing to answer email. But we do encourage everyone to get a bgca.net account. So what that is, that's the Boys and Girls Club National website. And they have, when you go to .net, they call it .net. That's what the cool kids say. When you go to .net, it'll, right, I'm so cool. It's really cool. They will ask you to come up with a login. So you'll just make up like a username and a password. And then that gets kicked over to Holly, and she'll say, yes, Molly and Maddie do actually work for us, and like check off that you are supposed to be on bgca.net. And then from there, you can access all kinds of cool stuff. So there's a Spillett University, which is a training portal through bgca.net. And it has all kinds of cool trainings that are webinars and like electronic stuff. In fact, we're going to ask that you do the child abuse prevention training within your first like 1 to 2 week on board with us. And that will be through Spillett University. There's actually directions for how to access that on page, wait for it. And it's on the one that the CP, I think it's page 18. So that will be your next step, is to try to complete that training, which is just another 60-minute kind of a more in-depth kind of overview than I did with the CPS stuff. Then, yep.
Oh, I don't see it.
You don't see it? It's under the, I wrote page 18 down in my notes, but it might not be accurate. It's underneath the, I think it says
I see it. Yep.
There's also a phone number on that page. I should have pointed out to you ladies too, of how, the number to actually call if you need to make a CPS report. So it's all in there. But not just, child abuse training, which is not as exciting, but there's also other cool little trainings on there on all kinds of stuff, from social emotional, like wellness materials to like on the spot fun games and things like that. And there's like a tab there that says program. And if you click on the program tab, it'll show all of this curriculum that Boys and Girls Club National put together, that a lot of it is very high quality activities that you can do with kids. And it's from all kinds of themes, like character and leadership types of activities to health and life skills, arts, all kinds of really good stuff in there. So I would, if you're interested in, ideas for how to fill time in a more like intentional, substantial way for like 60-minute, I would definitely comb through some of that material. And then the YDT app. So this is an app for your smartphone. This, I think it's actually called Youth. Let me look at it on my phone really quick. It's called Youth Development Toolbox, but it also, I think when you search for it at your app store, it's free, but it's called YD Toolbox, so Youth Development Toolbox. And what's cool about that is it has all kinds of cool on-the-spot materials. So I would definitely get that app. And then if you're looking for like a quick game to do with kids, you've got 10 minutes and you have no ideas for what you want to do, you can click on that app and it will even break it out into, do you want to do, they call them like collaborators or energy builders or different types of like on-the-spot fun games that you can do for 10 or 15 minutes. And it's a really great in a pinch. I think it even has like ideas for quiet calls to get attention, like yo, 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 and the kids say, what's up? So it's a good little resource. I think it even has little links to training in there as well. So definitely get that. Yep, questions about any of that stuff?
Nope.
No. Our wiki page is on here. I don't know if Holly talked to you about that, but that's actually getting phased out. So I'm going to ignore that slide, or that piece of the slide. And then, I don't know, what are you guys most excited about? I think for this part, I will have you jot it down in your workbook, which it's probably at the end. I think it's page 24, so that you can bring this to your club lead to discuss. So any questions you have, next steps that you need to take. So I know after hearing me like kind of training vomit all over all over you ladies for the last like hour and a half, what are your next steps and what questions do you have and what are you excited about? So go ahead and I'll give you 2 minutes to kind of jot down some of those pieces, and then we will close out.
I have a question, Katie.
Yes.
If
Go.
the kids are special needs, do we see their IEP, or do we just not, we don't know that are we to know their IEP? That's the question.
Great question. So when we register new members, there is a spot on the registration form for parents to complete that says, like, are there any special needs we need to be aware of, or behavioral needs? Is there an IEP is like an explicit question on that. We have noticed that sometimes parents of children that do have IEPs do not check the box for some reason. So if they do check the box, it triggers us to dive in deeper and find out more and get connected to the counselor at school and all of those folks. If they don't check the box, then that's sometimes under the radar for a minute, and we kind of going, well, so-and-so really seemed to be struggling in this area. What's going on? And then if we notice a trend, we'll talk to the director, who then reaches out, which is not the ideal way. The other thing that we've noticed is some of our districts are asking us to be a part of the IEP team because we are sitting in with kids doing this, distance learning. So in that situation, it probably wouldn't be the coordinator sitting in. It would probably be the club lead who would ask for your observations and notes and sit in on that team, and then come back with ideas and resources to support you in your work. So yes, and we don't always have all the information. So definitely ask. That's a great onboarding question for you to jot down, is like, which kids in my club have special needs or IEPs? Any other questions I can answer for you, ladies? I'm here, and we have a little bit of time, so I want to make sure I give you the opportunity.
Is the ratio supposed to be 2 coordinators per 12 children?
Great question again. Ding, ding, ding. So when we first opened our essential care programs that were before distance learning in the summer, we try to keep the ratio 1 to 12. And then as the CDC guidelines adjusted and changed a little bit, we are now up to 1 to 15. But because so many team members asked for support, because that was the number one issue, was trying to get to each member and support them specifically with their specific needs and double checking their work, et cetera. We heard from our CEO about 2 weeks ago that we are trying to get a second person in each class, so that there would be 2 team members to 12 to 15 kids, depending on how it actually breaks out. So the goal is, yes, we want 2 team members with up to 15 kids, but we're still in the process of hiring. So you 2 ladies are probably going to be second, additional staff in the classes you're joining now, which will be amazing.
I don't think I am. I think
oh, no?
Jenny and me, I think.
With Jenny and you, I think that for different clubs, so I think Windsor's actually the biggest, Maddie. So you guys have, I think, 5 or 6 different classes in Windsor, and then for Healdsburg, Healdsburg is just the one class. Yeah. So because it's one class, at this time, I think they're still trying to figure it out, but I don't think it necessarily makes sense to have a club lead out of ratio because there's only a total of like 10 kids in that club. So because of that, you have the one-off situation where it's maybe you and Jenny, but you're sharing responsibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Windsor, it's probably going to be more like an AM person, a PM person for each class, but they overlap so they can support each other. And then there's Mike also available who kind of goes from group to group to support as needed. Yeah. What else can I do? What else can I do to pull back the veil for you? And I'm an open book. I'll tell you whatever you want.
Good training, Katie.
Really? I feel bad because I'm just talking at the void.
No, that's how it goes.
To be fair, that's really the only option that you
That's
have.
the only option. Yeah.
Training.
Well, I so appreciate how awesome you two ladies are. You made it a joy for me. And then just letting you know, there is that last page. I think it's the daily checklist for youth development professionals. It has like just in your day, if you manage to, it's got the simple things like if you manage to learn everybody's name in your group and greet them all by name, you know, that's doing something. Like, so the daily checklist, it's like, don't feel bad about your life, your job, performance. If you can do everything on that checklist, they're all simple things. Then you're killing it and you're making a difference and it's awesome. So that's just a quick little summary sheet that is at the end. And that's all I have for us. And then here's my information though. If you want to jot it down somewhere, I don't know if it's actually in that workbook or not, but I am here. I am the person who can connect you with all kinds of program resources. That's my office number on there. And then if you want to talk to me and you can't find this information, you can always ask your club lead and they can reach out to me or whatever. I might, I think on Veterans Day, this November 11th, we're going to be having another all staff training. So I will see you then if I don't see you before that. But thank you so much. I'm super excited to have you ladies.
Thank you.
Excited to be part of it.
Beautiful. Well, then I am going to stop sharing my screen if I can figure it out. Oh, look out, there's everybody.
We could see you the whole time.
Could you?
Yeah, we have there's 3 pictures down below.
Mm-hmm.